Nearly a month ago, the WWE presented their WrestleMania 40 event, which saw Cody Rhodes battle Roman Reigns in what can only be described as the WWE's equivalent of Marvel's Endgame. The match was a fan service fest, no doubt, but one that was actually earned, and especially for younger fans who've been closely following the reality era of the WWE, which started at around 2014, this felt like it was for us. This was a beautiful and emotional tie-up of that era and that era specifically. Seeing Roman as this proper final boss who finally met his fate in a scenario that ties back to the one event that was the beginning of everything. It's like, damn, we're not that young anymore. It felt like yesterday when fans of The Shield were merely considered kids and all the old heads were hating on us, and the Shield breakup was the biggest thing on WWE TV week to week, but that was almost a decade ago, and these guys that we watched growing up are veterans of the business and even phasing out now. That was particularly emotional to me. But now, with that era all but in hindsight, we look forward to a new one, which some are calling the Renaissance era. I made a video explaining everything you need to know about the endgame match at WrestleMania 40. You may want to check that out first before watching this if by some chance non-wrestling fans are seeing this. But the landscape of the WWE post WrestleMania 40 is pretty crazy. So many news stories have spawned as a direct fallout of the WrestleMania 40 match, and they're all interconnected. So in this video, I'll explain everything you need to know about the WWE's next big storyline, and break everything down from the character dynamics to their goals and motivations to try and predict how things will play out until the next WrestleMania. If we are to start with this topic, it's hard to think about anyone other than Cody Rhodes first. Cody finally defeated Roman Reigns after over a year of trying. And now as the new protagonist of this new Renaissance era, Cody's character is in a very interesting spot. Just like he himself said, he used to be in the line, but now people are lining up for him. Cody's first challenger following his victory over Roman has already been decided in the form of AJ Styles. I'm expecting a very good match where Cody is the obvious victor. And to me, when it comes to actual long-term plans for Cody, two individuals come to mind: Randy Orton and The Rock. These two are the obvious SummerSlam and WrestleMania matches for Cody, but which one is which is kind of a point of contention at the moment. The reasons I will get into later. Cody's WWE debut match was against Randy Orton, and the two spent quite some time together as part of a faction called Legacy, which comprised second generation or third generation wrestlers only, hence the name. Randy is pretty much Cody's mentor, and he even came out to celebrate with Cody when he defeated Roman Reigns. So the story goes deep and there is plenty of material to work with. However, as big as this match is, I can't help but feel like anything that exists outside of this Bloodline war story that encompasses everyone including Cody just feels kind of secondary. That story, it just feels like the story because it's a direct follow-up of WrestleMania 40. Cody himself is just too deeply involved that I just feel like the match with The Rock has to be the definitive main focus. Like I said, I've already explained everything pre-WrestleMania 40 in my other video, but just in case you need a gist, Cody and Roman had a brewing story in the lead up to WrestleMania 40, but backstage politics saw The Rock returning, as a good guy might I add, to face Roman instead. But the decision was met with severe backlash, and so the WWE pivoted back to Cody, whereas The Rock became a villain who aligned himself with Roman Reigns. To say this Rock run was great would be an understatement. From comedic timing as well as turning up in serious moments when needed to just how over the top he was, this Rock character was brilliant. If you're one of those movie fans who don't rate The Rock like at all, which I understand, check out some of the stuff that he did during this run. It's tremendous. But anyways, during this story, The Rock served as this mega power that was backing up Roman Reigns and making sure that he and their entire family stayed on top. Or was he really? That's something to discuss a bit later. During the serious moments of this current iteration of his character, The Rock was genuinely unhinged. He would beat Cody up until he's bloody, constantly taunt and disrespect Cody's mother, and make little kids cry. Cody and Rock had such a great dynamic that the build to WrestleMania 40 more than anything felt like Cody versus The Rock. And now with Roman Reigns somewhat in the rear view, Cody and The Rock 1v1 is something that 100% needs to happen. The official nickname of The Rock's current character is literally called the Final Boss. On the Raw after WrestleMania 40, The Rock and Cody had a segment where The Rock made his intentions clear that he wants Cody's belt. Not only that, he handed Cody an unknown object, which sparked quite an interesting reaction from Cody, and Rock ended the segment by giving Cody an ominous warning to never break his heart again, whatever that means. There are some insane theories as to what this mystery item is. One such theory is that this object is a lighter. This is in reference to a real-life incident where Cody's tour bus caught on fire. There weren't any real casualties, so the event seems innocuous and unproblematic enough to turn into a story if the WWE so wishes. Yes, this theory is implying that The Rock tried to set Cody on fire in storyline. Other theories range from a watch to a bead of Roman Reigns' necklace. The former is in reference to gifts that were exchanged between the 4 men involved in the prior WrestleMania 40 story. It's unclear if the gifts were between all 4 men or only Cody Rhodes and Seth Rollins, so this theory kind of gets confusing and muddled in that regard. The latter is implying that The Rock expelled and punished Roman Reigns, and Cody, being the diplomat that he is, doesn't hate Roman and he's just appalled by how The Rock could do this to his own family. This is the classic motif where the real final boss punishes the second-in-command guy for not getting the job done. Which theory is true, we'll just have to wait and see, but regardless of that, The Rock versus Cody Rhodes, the protagonist versus the final boss, is definitely on the horizon. Next we have Roman Reigns and the Bloodline. Not much has happened with Roman ever since his defeat at WrestleMania 40. He posted a short video addressing his loss and changed his Twitter bio accordingly, but outside of that he's been quiet. Unless you count him appearing in a project with Kiki Palmer as something which I for one consider as completely irrelevant to wrestling. The Bloodline is a faction made up of multiple members from the Samoan wrestling family tree. It started with Roman, the twin brothers the Usos, and the wise man Paul Heyman, but saw 2 new additions in 2022 in the form of Sami Zayn and Solo Sikoa, the little brother of the Usos. The original Bloodline is a whole saga of its own. The brief summary is that Roman was mostly abusive and manipulative in how he treated the whole group. The climax of this story saw many members breaking away from Roman's clutches and retaliating against him, namely Sami, Jey Uso, and even Jimmy Uso before he backdoored his brother and went back to Roman anyway for some reason. Solo Sikoa, however, did not leave the Bloodline even once. So in the build-up to WrestleMania 40, Roman, Paul, Solo, Jimmy, and The Rock as a latest addition were the active members of the Bloodline. It's important to note that a match between The Rock and Roman Reigns has always been planned to some extent, not just for WrestleMania 40 but since many years back. It was supposed to happen quite a while ago, but for one reason or another, things just would not be. But regardless, that match is still one of the big marquee matches that WWE is always building towards. So in that sense, are The Rock and Roman Reigns really on the same page? Very subtle hints of dissension were planted throughout multiple episodes on the road to WrestleMania 40. Roman Reigns also accidentally speared The Rock in their tag match together. Plus, connecting back to what we discussed a bit earlier, if the Roman necklace theory is true, that's a good way to set up a match between Rock and Roman. Also, in Roman's absence, Solo Sikoa has carried out a complete coup d'etat. This is yet another story that has been hinted towards since a long time ago. Back in 2023, when the Usos first retaliated against Roman, Solo remained on the Bloodline side, and a tag team match between the 4 men were scheduled. And there was a very interesting scene where Roman Reigns kind of psychologically collapsed because the Usos just would not go down. In that moment, Solo Sikoa was visibly disappointed in the tribal chief. It can be assumed that there is more than meets the eye when it comes to Solo's apparent undying loyalty to Roman, and that he's been plotting his takeover the entire time. On the recent April 12th episode of SmackDown, Solo took it upon himself to kick out Jimmy Uso from the Bloodline, replacing him with a new member, Tama Tonga, who isn't directly related to any of the members from the Bloodline, but shares some very close family relationships. There are also reports that Jacob Fatu, another member of the Samoan wrestling dynasty, has signed with the WWE, and he will presumably join Solo's new Bloodline. If Paul Heyman's reaction to Solo's recent actions is anything to go by, we can confirm that none of this has been approved by Roman Reigns. In fact, we can take it a step further and even speculate that The Rock might be behind this new bloodline. This leaves us with all 3 or 4 members of the original bloodline kicked out of the ranks. So, will Roman return as a good guy as the original group reunite under a much healthier fashion? It seems very likely that this will be the direction, and we get a Civil War story followed up by a definitive match between Rock and Roman. Which one between Cody versus The Rock and Roman versus The Rock gets the WrestleMania placement remains to be seen. What's also interesting is that Cody and Roman now have a common enemy, and if Roman turns to the good side, the two could even potentially work together. Amidst all of this, there is still one man that needs to be mentioned. One, Seth Rollins. Seth Rollins played a massive role in the WrestleMania 40 match. He came out to assist Cody wearing the Shield uniform, which provided a perfect distraction for Roman, who, instead of focusing on Cody, chose to get revenge and get even with Seth Rollins for his betrayal almost 10 years ago. Unless you don't watch wrestling, I think everyone knows the history between Seth and Roman already. In the build to WrestleMania 40, Rollins promised Cody that he would be his shield, which has a brilliant double meaning. One being a rather obvious reference to Rollins and Roman's old group together, the other being him saying that he won't be on the offense, and instead, he'll just create the perfect opening for Cody to deal the finishing blow, which that's exactly what he did. There are many different explanations behind Roman's tribal chief character, particularly its origin and how it came to be. Some people like to think of it as a meta character. From 2014 to 2020, Roman Reigns was very heavily disliked by the fans, and this theory claims that this evil Machiavellian character was born from those years of rejection after a lot of pent-up insecurities. Others like to claim that Seth Rollins is responsible for the character, or rather his behavioral traits. The trauma inflicted by Seth Rollins and that betrayal is the reason Roman is abusive and controlling of his family, as to ensure that no one would ever leave him again. The WWE themselves seem to be going with this one, so it makes sense to think that a Seth Rollins and Roman Reigns match has to fit somewhere in this whole saga. This could be the moment where they undo the years of trauma and finally move on, and that's how we get babyface Roman back. So that's how the landscape of the WWE looks after WrestleMania 40. I'll sum up the major matches that we went over. First we have Cody vs Randy, which is unrelated to the Bloodline story. Then we have Cody vs The Rock, which has to be one of the 2 final fights of this whole saga. Then we have Roman and the Usos, and potentially even Sami or Cody if they can forgive Roman, against the new Bloodline, led by Solo Sikoa and presumably also led by The Rock. Next we have Roman vs Seth, which as we discussed could be the catalyst for good guy Roman. And finally we have Roman Reigns vs The Rock, which could serve as the other final match. The timeline and the order of these matches will just have to wait and see. The updated good and bad roles and character dynamics after WrestleMania 40 can be confusing, so I made this graphic so you can pause and see everything if you wish. So that's it. That's everything you need to know about the WWE's upcoming big storylines.
Thanks for watching, and make sure to subscribe for more.